That means Monday is Casual Monday. Tuesday, Casual Tuesday. Wednesday, Casual Hump Day. Thursday, Casual Thurs. That's what we call it. And Friday, Casual Shabbat. The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
It is Friday, April 19, 2024. My name is Sam Seder. This is the five-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Jeet Heer, national affairs correspondent for The Nation, will be here to look back on this week that was another jam-packed, fun week of news. 3 different occasions where we almost went into a wider regional war.
Yeah, lovely.
Also on the program today, Israel launches muted attacks on Iran. Tehran downplays and signals no retaliation. Meanwhile, U.S. vetoes widely backed UN resolution for full membership for Palestine. And in Manhattan, 12 jurors now seated for Trump's criminal trial, 6 alternates extant and being appointed, maybe today. New reporting from ProPublica, State Department panel found multiple Israeli police and military units had committed enough human rights violations and abuses to be ineligible for U.S. aid, and this report came pre-October 7th. Most of those attacks took place in the West Bank by these Israeli forces. In Washington, after the Democrats provide procedural votes, supplemental foreign aid package will get a final vote tomorrow amidst more and more Republicans saying they're going to get rid of Mike Johnson. Columbia University has well over 100 students arrested for a peaceful pro-Palestinian protest, which ostensibly ruined their lawn. UAW's Tennessee Volkswagen plant vote ends tonight. Not clear when we're going to hear the results, but this is big. Big, big, big vote. FISA authorization soft deadline is also tonight as the Senate weighs amendments. Biden administration expands federal protections for Alaska. And RFK Jr. qualifies for Michigan ballot as the Kennedy family endorses Biden. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Sorry about that last one on the expansion of those protections in wild forest up in Alaska. I couldn't get that. I forgot to put that part on my headlines.
That's all good.
It's Friday.
Yes.
I'm a big
Alaskans, you're
here.
not forgotten, despite Sam,
Yep, I knew it was in the state. Emma Vigeland, fresh off of her big birthday celebration.
Yes. Big birthday. Yes. Yeah, no, it was nice. It was nice. Thank you to everybody for all the kind words. Matt's looking at me. I don't know why. Okay.
You seem defensive. Yes, it's my birthday. Okay.
No. I just there's just odd.
Don't be saying anything about 30 being really old.
No,
because
I'm
that's
not.
gonna be a problem.
I have weird that there are moments where I love attention, like when I'm talking about politics. I'm thrilled to have attention, but for some reason I get reflexively oh, I'm under the spotlight for my birthday. I get awkward about it. So anyway, but thank you for all the kind words.
Well, I mean, there weren't that many.
Yeah.
It was just a happy birthday. It
Well,
wasn't like,
I meant from the audience,
We didn't give you
the
a
people
big-
that truly love me.
not like we didn't. Not like we gave you an award.
It's a formality.
I deserve one. But...
Okay, there we go. All right, so there we go. Got a lot to get to today, but meanwhile, the 12 jurors have sat in Manhattan at this point. It's sort of amazing they've been able to do this so quickly. There's been a lot of talk about various media outlets, including Fox, but also NBC News, that have like gone into some of the details of these jurors. And frankly, apparently the judge has said you can't do this, but the fact is you sort of can. This is the nature of our criminal system. If it's in open court, then it's an open court and it can be reported upon. There may be circumstances where you need to protect the identity of jurors. I think there certainly has been some history of like some mafia cases where that's been done on some level. So maybe there's mechanisms in which to do that, but that hasn't been done. It would be better if the media was a little bit more circumspect, but of course they're not going to be, depending on what their incentive structure is at any given time. But this take on Trump's criminal court trial, I should say, is pretty stunning. I guess when you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And this guy, and he was, before he was like, I know he's been on Canadian television. In fact, I remember him having a debate with, I think, somebody about climate change 10 years ago, I feel like, that we had talked about on this program. But here is that guy from, you may know him from Shark's Tank. What number is this?
14.
Oh, 14. Yeah, he's this Canadian guy, Kevin Mr. Wonderful O'Leary. I don't know why they call him Mr. Wonderful.
I think he gave himself that nickname. Probably.
Yeah.
Incidentally, I refer to myself as Sam Great Guy. Seder.
Gregarious.
They just do. But here is Shark Tank investor Kevin Mr. Wonderful O'Leary on with Fox's Harris Faulkner on Outnumbered on Fox. And here is his take on the Trump trial.
And you got to check out YouTube every now and then for a calm Stephen A. Smith. Everybody had a comment about that. I'll start with you, Kevin.
I have a different take on this case, and I just want to preface my words saying before I comment, I've talked about these cases in New York now for months. This really, and every time I bring this up, I get all this Trump stuff. Forget about Trump, okay? We don't do this in America. We don't go after the office of the president with porn star cases. We give a broad swath of latitude. And if you're an ex-president and you murdered somebody, I get it. Or been
Pause it
accused
for
of
one
murder.
second. I'm relatively familiar with American history, and I don't remember any type of porn exemption to our laws. But let's be clear. This is a criminal trial for actions he took prior to being president. A.
Yep.
B, the issue isn't whether she's a porn star or whether she's a housewife or whether she's a lawyer or an
Entrepreneur.
insurance, adjuster or a contestant on Shark's Tank. The bottom line is Trump committed fraud to hide payments that he knew were illicit under federal election law. That's it. It doesn't matter who she is. It doesn't even matter that it was an affair. It doesn't matter that it was a man or a woman or anything. He could have paid off people for other things. And if he had done the same type of fraud, it would be in there. The only reason why Shark Tank guy is paying attention to it, apparently, because it's so much more sordid for him because she was involved in porn,
Pornography, yeah.
that it somehow is like you should get a special dispensation.
Well, the good thing they gave that dispensation to Hunter Biden, all those conservatives. Oh, wait, they just combed through his entire laptop, even though he wasn't accused of anything close to what Trump is doing, just so they could see more pictures of him naked.
latitude. And if you're an ex-president and you murdered somebody, I get it, or been accused of murder. But what is this? This hurts the American brand. I keep saying that. I was in Geneva last week, 150 countries represented there. Everybody's talking about this, saying, what is this porn star thing? Like, this is an American president. This is the office of the United States of America's highest office. And we're doing this? This is sheer stupidity. And I'll tell you what should happen. This should be pushed until after he wins or doesn't win.
I would bet everything he owns that those people in Geneva weren't coming up and going, like, this is bad for your country, that they're actually putting him on trial for this stuff. As opposed to
him doing
he's
it?
bad for your country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but that is like a common refrain if you talk to people outside of the United States, that Trump is a clown and bad for the country. Not the prosecution of Trump for being a criminal is bad for the country. And this is all the way, by the way, the second time that O'Leary's been going on cable news to go to bat for one of Trump's cases. He was also defending him in the fraud trial, the civil fraud trial, saying that this was going to hamper American ingenuity and investment. Like, I guess, I don't know what he's angling for here, but it's clearly to be in Trump's orbit.
I also wonder, like, nobody brought up anything happening with Israel and Gaza or anything like that. It was all just this whole porno trial. What's going on with that?
No powerful people are going up to Mr. Wonderful to say anything.
Sheer stupidity. And I'll tell you what should happen. This should be pushed until after he wins or doesn't win. This should be not part of this election cycle at all. And this is not a Trump-loving comment. This is about the American brand where I bring capital from all around the world to invest here. We look like clowns. Yes. I hate this.
Yeah. Emily.
I'm not going to invest in your project because porn's case.
Sure.
I am Chris Surida reminds me, there was an incident, and folks probably don't remember this because this was so obscure and so long ago. But there was actually an incident where millions of dollars were spent on an investigation around a real estate deal that ended up basically releasing a whole report on how the president received oral copulation from someone who was not his wife. And in fact, the Republican Party attempted and did impeach, at least in the House, this president, that being Bill Clinton. Now, somehow we managed to get past that with around the world.
The American brand.
This huge, the whole American brand. I guess it's just one thing to receive oral copulation versus one thing where you, I don't know, pay to bury a story. I'm not sure exactly.
I think maybe the American brand should be a secondary consideration for things like prosecutions.
Yeah.
We're getting this whole rule of law reputation, and that's not cool, man. We'll talk more about the case perhaps later in the program. In a moment, we're going to be talking to Jeet Heer. He's the national affairs correspondent for The Nation magazine. First, a couple of words from our sponsors. Now's the time, folks. Plant your trees, plant your shrubs, plant your indoor plants. You don't, I guess, you put them in a pot and just keep watering them. But this is the time. Fast Growing Trees is the biggest online nursery in the U.S. with more than 10,000 different kinds of plants and over 2 million happy customers in the U.S. You should know that by now. You should also know that I was a customer of theirs way before they started to advertise on this program. So I do these advertisements with pleasure. Well, we get paid for it too. But to be honest with you, I mean, I feel good about advertising for these guys. Here's the key. I mean, they've got fruit trees. They've got shade trees. They've got palm trees if you're in that type of growing area. They've got house plants. They've got indoor trees. We could talk about all this, but here's the big selling point for me is you can buy a limited fraction of what you can get from fast growing trees online. You can buy that at like, your hardware store or whatever it is. But if you get a tree that's big enough that it's actually going to take hold when you get it home, you're going to bust it up in the back of your car. And B, they have a limited crappy selection of this stuff. And then once you buy it, you're done. No advice, nothing. It doesn't matter what you're interested in. Fast Growing Trees has it for you. They'll find the perfect fit for your climate and space. They make it easy to order online. Your plants are shipped directly to you within 1 to 2 days. And along with that, they have their 30-day Alive and Thrive guarantee. And here's the thing. They offer free plant consultation forever. You go to your local, big box hardware store, they can barely tell you where the plants are in the whole place. I think it's aisle 17. But with fast-growing trees, you don't need to have a lot of space. You can grow shade trees or fruit trees in your backyard or wherever, but you can grow lemon trees, avocado trees, olive or fig trees inside your home. Doesn't matter whether you're looking to add privacy, shade, or natural beauty. Fast-growing trees have in-house experts. They will help you make the right decision, and they'll give you growing and care advice 24/7. One thing about the avocado thing. I just found out that you're not supposed to keep the avocados in water, even though that keeps them ripe, because it can create all sorts of like foodborne illnesses.
Oh.
So you know what the key is to getting fresh avocados?
Having
an avocado tree in your house.
Avocado tree. There you go.
This spring, they have the best deals online, up to half off select plants and other deals. And our listeners to our show get an additional 15% off their first purchase when using the code majority at checkout. That's an additional 15% off at fastgrowingtrees.com using the code majority at checkout. Fastgrowingtrees.com. Code is majority. Offer valid for a limited time. Terms and conditions may apply. Also, you got 3 more days, ladies and gentlemen, until Monday at 12:59 p.m., I think, right? Yeah, 24.
Monday at the 22nd, at least.
Yeah, Monday the 22nd. Sunset Lake Sebede.com has their 420 sale. Last year, thanks to Majority Report listeners, and of course Sunset Lake Sebede, we and them helped raise $22,000 for the Last Prisoner Project, which is a nonprofit organization dedicated to cannabis criminal justice reform, and SunsetLakeSebede.com running it back. Everything on SunsetLakeSebede.com, 30% off with coupon code 420. And if your order is over $100, they're going to throw in a free 20-count jar of their Vibe gummies. Folks, this is the time to order all of your stuff. There's products on there you've wanted to try. The Sleepy Time tincture, which I can tell you right now is worth its weight in gold. And I think it's significantly cheaper than gold, although I have not been following the spot price.
It does the trick.
But they also have like regular Sebede tinctures. They have Sebede tinctures with melatonin. They have it in different concentrations and different flavors. They have Sebede fudge. They have Sebede coffee. They have smokables, great to mix in with your stuff. Keef, pre-rolls, buds, flour. They have all sorts of gummies. They have focus gummies and sleepy gummies and relaxation gummies and gummies with Sebede, with THC. All of them on sale, 30% off. They have lotions and the salves. Now is the time to try all of these products because you get them 30% off. And again, any order over $100 gets you a free 20-count jar of their Vibe gummies, which has THC. Sunset Lake going to donate 4.2% of the proceeds from this sale to the Last Prisoner Project, and we, the Majority Report, will match. Sunset Lake's 420 sale ends April 22nd. Head over to sunsetlakesebede.com. Take advantage of this deal. Help raise money for cannabis criminal justice reform. See their website for sale terms and restrictions. Also, just a reminder, it is your support that makes this show possible. You can become a member at jointhemajorityreport.com. And when you do, you not only get the free show free of commercials, you help this show survive and thrive through the ups and downs of the news and people getting sick of it or not sick of it or tuning in or whatever it is. Your support makes this show possible. Check it out. Jointhemajorityreport.com.
And subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're just watching this.
We are 25,000 subs short of 1.5 million, folks. So if you are watching this unsubscribed, get in there.
That's right. And if you have friends who are interested in a daily news show where you can come in and out, depending on the guest or whatever the news is, tell them subscribe to the show. We're 25,000 people away from that. And lastly, cedarseeds.com. Cedarseeds.com. Coupon code April will get you 42% off your seeds. Now's the time to get them. Plant them in your little seedling cups. Transfer them to a bigger thing. Let them grow. Then make sure you get rid of the males. That's always the way to improve things, apparently.
That's what I'm always saying.
And you can do that on your fire escape. You can grow that stuff. All right, quick break, and then we'll be talking to Jeet Heer. We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigland on the Majority Report. I want to welcome back to the program Jeet Heer, national affairs correspondent for The Nation magazine. Jeet, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, always a pleasure.
I got a first question for you. You asked this question, I think, on Monday in a piece at The Nation. Will Benjamin Netanyahu drag America into a big Middle Eastern war? It is a tribute to you that this question has nearly been answered just 4 days later. What?
Well, I think he's definitely trying. You got to give Bibi credit, right? He's making the effort. I actually think it's a very interesting thing that's going on right now because both the United States and Iran do not want a big regional war, nor do the Arab autocracies that are aligned with the United States. And so what you're basically seeing is this very weird kabuki dance of people trying to respond to various Israeli provocations, taking things to the limit of war, but not war. There's a lot of kind of very curious calibration that's been going on. And this actually, I mean, to give credit where credit's due, George W. Bush, by his idiotic decision to invade Iraq, created a situation where Iraq is very friendly to Iran and now acts as a kind of back channel or go-between between the United States and Iran. So even before the last Saturday's bombings, the U.S. and Iranians were talking and basically setting out the parameters for Iran's response. And that has continued, that the U.S. is basically trying to choreograph this wrestling match so that, both sides can get in their swipes without it actually being a situation where, we get World War III. How long that can continue? That's an open question.
Right. I mean, we're walking on thin ice essentially, but it is when you step back and just sort of contemplate this idea that in this incredibly volatile region, everyone there, like, this is like you got your best friend who's like trying to drag you into all sorts of fights. But even the people he's trying to pick fights with are like, no, not interested. It's just sort of weird. I mean, this is like, we're like, I mean, aside from like the horrors associated with this, when you step back and you look at this is a very, very strange dynamic, and one which I can't find, at least within modern history, any type of analogy to this.
Actually, I think the analogy would be in the before the First World War, which might not be the reassurance that you need. But before the First World War, both the Russians and the Austro-Hungarians and the Germans had various proxies in the Balkans, as did Britain and France, and they were using these proxies to carry out battles. And basically, as these Balkan proxies started to carry out horrific terrorist and assassination attacks, the great powers got dragged into war, because what's in the interest of the small power is to get the big power to join them in their battle and fight their fight for them. And that's not necessarily in the interest of the big power, although they want to show like they want to have this alliance system. So I think that is the worrying precedent, that you could have a situation. I also sort of remember that Warner Brothers cartoon with the two dogs, one of which is a very tough guy and the other is a little dog that follows him around and keeps getting into fights knowing that the big dog will join him in his fight. And that is basically the American-Israeli relationship.
You can also, I think, draw some comparison to the final years of South Africa's apartheid regime, where they were beginning conflicts. It was Angola, Zimbabwe. You can see a bit of the parallels of a regime of this kind being unsustainable and collapsing upon itself. But of course, the American-Israel relationship is so unique, given the fact that it's the only country that has this powerhouse domestic lobbying organization in AIPAC with tens of millions of dollars that has been quite effective in basically buying our government in this way. So much so that, I mean, Joe Biden still has not made any substantive action, despite some rhetorical shifts, in funding Israel and supporting it diplomatically, including what we saw yesterday at the United Nations vetoing that Palestinian statehood resolution.
Yeah, no, the South African analogy is, I think, exactly on point. And it's partially a matter of, like, there's two factors at work. One is the personal survival of Benjamin Netanyahu, where, he knows, like, if there's no war, he's done. And so, like, if he's being pressured to, ease up on Gaza, he has to have another war. But beyond Netanyahu, and I think we should never just blame Netanyahu, there's the Israeli political system. And the instincts of that political system have always been to talk about anything other than the Palestinians. That's to say, never get to a position where you actually have to negotiate a two-state solution. And the theory that they've always had is there's always some other factor, whether it's Saddam Hussein or the Iranians, that are the real problem. I mean, this is you might recall right after October 7th, there were these articles in the Wall Street Journal and elsewhere making the absurd argument that this was basically an Iranian plot, that the Iranians had caused October 7th. And it's because they would rather fight a big war with Iran, which is a state and where, you can bomb things, than actually grapple with the real unsolvable dilemma that they have. They occupy these population that will refuses their rule. So there's a kind of distraction effect going on.
But it's also about galvanizing Western support, right? Because this supplemental, which I know we'll talk about, this aid to Israel has been kind of just sitting there, and at a time when public opinion in the West, for the base of the Democratic Party here, a majority of people, Biden's voter base, are outraged by this and want us to change policy on Israel. And I'm sure Netanyahu saw that, and so this original strike on the consulate in Syria, killing this top Iranian general, appears to me as a very obvious attempt for him to galvanize Western military support if the threat of Iran looms, as public opinion was beginning to change on this on the support for this genocide.
Yeah, no, I think that is the rationale and the logic. Although I have to say, like, if we get into a large war and there are like a large number of American soldiers dying because of a war that Israel started, public opinion, which is already souring on Israel, it's going to go to a whole new place.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, did you see this thing in the supposedly in the Times where supposedly Israel was surprised that Iran took issue with this? With it? I'm not joking.
They said they didn't see it as a provocative action.
They didn't see it as a provocative action. I mean, what is stunning to me is like I have seen no, outside of like all the speculation you talked about in the first days after October 7th, I have seen no reporting whatsoever, and plenty of reports to the contrary that Iran was involved in the planning of October 7th or was even aware of it beforehand. I mean, that seems to be the consensus, and yet here they are. In the midst of this assault on Gaza, which is supposedly, according to them, existential, they're just like side bombing, Syria and Iran. Like, just we didn't even think that anybody would even notice. Like, what? Yeah. Who is this for? It feels to me like this stuff is now just for deluded people to have something to hang on to. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not convincing anybody.
Absolutely, yeah, and I want to just underscore that. Like, the only people that were saying that the Iranians had foreknowledge was basically the Wall Street Journal and a few other right-wing outlets that were clearly being fed information from Israeli intelligence. But the consensus of American intelligence is the exact opposite. That not only were the Iranians not involved with October 7th, they were really taken by surprise by it. And that actually explains a lot of their behavior of both Iran and Hezbollah afterwards, where they've been really trying to have hands off. They don't want to get involved with a fight that they did not know about and have any role in. So I actually think, who is this for? I mean, like, it is based on especially based on appealing to that hardcore base. And as Emma says, galvanizing Western opinion. Like, there is a sort of, if you can have a war with Iran, you can get that. But it's also based on the very practical reality that Joe Biden has given them a blank check and has always said, you have ironclad support. There are no red lines. So if you have someone who's willing to back you up all the way, let's say you're like a rich kid and you have a daddy who every time you crash a car or, you get into a bar fight, he will always bail you out, right? Lawyers always send lawyers guns and money. Then you're going to act that way, right? This is the spoiled.
Biden literally did that with his kid, but anyway.
I think,
Well, and with his dogs. I mean, this is actually like Biden's way of relating to people.
The irony is that I feel like I think Netanyahu knows that he needs to have these ongoing dramas to maintain his position, to not get booted out of office, I think, on some level. Like, there has to be some measure of drama. I also can't help. I mean, I think that there is, and while I agree with you, Netanyahu is more symptomatic of a problem that exists in the Israeli body politic, as opposed to being sort of some outlier. I don't think he is at all. But I do think that this is another case, and I feel like this happened during the Bush administration as well. In fact, that's what I would imagine there was like some dissent as to whether Israel should have unilaterally pulled out of Gaza and just converted it into essentially a ghetto, an open air prison, or whatever it is however you want to characterize it. But that there is no ballast of which the Israeli administration can use the U.S. government, it feels like, as a way of like justifying tapping the brakes at any point. I mean, maybe this is happening internally when you got even like Ben Gvir, I think it was, who said like the attack on Iran, our retaliation for Iran's retaliation was weak and whatnot. I mean, obviously they have their incentive structure, but nobody can credibly say like the U.S. is going to cut off aid if we do anything different. I mean, like that's the thing. They can't even say that.
No, absolutely, they can't say that. No, Biden has given them a blank check, and this is what you get. And on the Netanyahu point, I mean, absolutely, his personal survival rests on more war. But if you actually look at, like, the reporting on what's going on in the war cabinet, the so-called moderates, like Gantz, like they're actually like more eager for a war with Iran than Netanyahu is. So I think structurally, it is like the Israeli state. Basically the war in Gaza has gone very badly. I mean, like, if you think about it, like it's been 6 months and like Hamas is still there and they haven't recovered the hostages. They've done horrific things. And yes, of course, if you have a modern army, you can kill a lot of civilians, but they have not achieved any of their military goals. And nor can they. I mean, they have no real like logical military goals there. So they need another avenue for showing military prowess. And Joe Biden has, like he said, here are the car keys, go wreck another car.
Exactly. What do you make of the vetoing of the UN resolution for full membership for Palestine? The U.S. excuse on this was like, well, we do support a Palestinian state, but we think it should be negotiated between the parties, which essentially means they shouldn't be able to have one unless Israel gives them permission to, which, as far as I can tell, there were really no multi-party negotiations, or let's put it this way, not everybody was at the table when Israel itself got its mandate from the UN.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, like, there's a couple of things. One is I want to, it's a little bit interesting that before the vote, the U.S. was like going to like all the countries on the council and saying like, look, let's not bring this up. Can you do us a favor? And it's because they didn't want to have the vote and they didn't want to come out to be seen as against a Palestinian state. And I think that really shows the kind of game that's played here, which is that the idea of a two-state solution, a Palestinian state, is basically used as a rhetorical lip service. Like, it's something you pay tribute to, but you never actually act on, and you never actually do. And I think it's actually interesting that the countries that they were going to trying to say, like, let's not bring this to a vote, they didn't listen to the United States. The U.S. has almost zero credibility on the international stage on this, not just like in the global south, but like among traditional allies in Europe and Asia.
Yeah, that I think is really the telling thing. This is if you wanted to take a temperature and see where the rest of the world is relative to their listening to the U.S., 2 abstentions is the best that the U.S. could do. And I think that is
UK and Switzerland.
Very telling, frankly.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And I mean, of course, the UK are the lapdogs of America, so that's not surprising. But this is really an example of American exceptionalism, and it goes back to like Emma's point about the immense power of the Israeli lobby, and the fact that the U.S. has carved out a very special position for Israel, which they give to no other country, and the fact that even among that, American exceptionalism, Joe Biden is an outlier to even that. Like, he does not even have the self-respect of a Bush Senior or a Clinton or an Obama or a Reagan, who all at particular points said to Israel, enough is enough. Like, Joe Biden does not have that in him. And that's what makes this a very scary moment.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the sort of, I guess, the some of the politics around this. Like, it seems now that the majority of Democrats, and a significant majority, are against, this unconditional support to Israel. And they're, prior to this exchange with Iran, it seemed like there was at least some building momentum to condition aid. We'll talk a little bit about the supplemental that's winding its way through, but I was really struck by the protest that we saw. I guess it was yesterday at Columbia University, because it does remind me. We've mentioned South Africa. It reminds me of when I was in college, when we were having this big fight to divest from South Africa, and Ronald Reagan was like, constructive engagement, sort of made up a term for this. But there were there were a lot of students on that campus, and they brought in a bunch of cops to arrest them. Apparently, I've learned from Twitter that Columbia is very, very particular about their lawns in their quad there, apparently,
and their gate situation, which they closed because of all these outside agitators.
But these were very peaceful protests. I mean, that's the thing that really struck me. They're bringing in hundreds of cops to arrest just a Thursday afternoon sitting on the quad protest. It was pretty crazy.
Well, I mean, the most remarkable thing is, the administration that called it in, and the NYPD in their statement said, well, these were peaceful protesters, and we didn't actually see anything, that was going on here, but we were called in, right? So the administration of Columbia University is officially more let's crack heads than the NYPD.
And I just to be clear with people, this is how they did it. They basically revoked the rights of students to hang out on the quad, essentially, on this day. So it was trespassing that they were arrested for, and that's bizarre.
It's an amazing thing. It's an amazing thing, and particularly since we have a long history of this going back to the Vietnam War and the South African protests, where it's actually a very bad thing for a university president to call in the cops on protesters. That's a good way to lose your legitimacy with faculty and with students. But I mean, university presidents are facing pressure from another end. One is political; they're being dragged before Congress in these kind of show trials. To say what are you doing to fight anti-Semitism? But also from the donor class. And I saw a really interesting analysis of this, which is that the universities are being hit on two pressure points. One is from the donor class, which includes a lot of people that are, either pro-Israel or just pro-status quo. They don't like protest. They don't like disruption. And then they have the students, which are politically very different and increasingly, international. I mean, this is one way American universities continue to go. They get students from all over the world, and therefore are far more progressive on this than the donors. But the university needs both for income, right? They need the student tuition and they need the donors to give grants and alumni funding. Basically, it's like which side are you on question, and a lot of university administrations are, well, the donors, they write the big checks, right. That is the side that they're on. And I think that's a pretty grave mistake.
Well, I mean, look, you're going to get phone calls from donors. You're not getting calls from prospective students,
but
right? They don't know who they
are
yet.
They're also not listening to the teachers on their campuses, right? Yeah. That's the other thing, where the administrators are basically, as you're saying, Jeet, responsive to the donor class and the big money donors, specifically at these elite universities. And you have the professors who are engaging with these topics and want to preserve free expression on campuses, the exact place where you should be having these discussions. This is what liberal education is ostensibly supposed to be for. And the administrators are actively and including the Columbia president, who went in front of Congress and did not provide really any defense for her student body or the academic freedom at the institution.
And who actually criticized professors at her own university, right. Slandered, professors there, which is a really shocking thing. I think that the university presidents are in an untenable position. And to go back to the South African example, I think it was Giamatti in the father of the actor, who's the
Yeah,
president
Yale,
at Yale. Yale.
Bart Giamatti,
Yeah.
who you know was
And
a former Major League Baseball commissioner as well, but he was also
And he
the
I did
president
not
of Yale.
know that actually.
Oh,
yeah,
all right.
yeah. He called in the cops on South African protesters, and that was basically the end of his reign as president. Like he lost huge amount of legitimacy, and did not have faculty support, and even among the donor class, it is the big donors that are for this, but there's a lot of medium level donors, who are just normal liberal Democrats, and they're seeing this stuff and they're not liking it. So yeah, I just think it really shows you, in stark relief, the power centers, where the power is and how much power is at odds with democratic sentiment.
It's going to be interesting too to see how what trajectory this sends this generation on in terms of its politics. I think you made that point on Twitter, that it's sort of like making clear whose toes are where and whose toes are being stepped on.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's something I think about a lot. I mean, we obviously have the example of the '60s, but it's also the case, and a lot of this has a racial dimension as well. I mean, a lot of the sort of changes in the university are you get this cohort that are immigrants, people of color, often the first of their family to go to university, and the valedictorian at University of South Carolina, who was denied a top student, valedictorian,
USC in California.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's California. Yeah, who's not allowed to speak because of her pro-Palestine sentiment. So you're going to get these people who are, traditionally you want to integrate them into the American elite. You want to make these people, your next generation of leaders, but they're learning, what the contradictions of power are in America. Right. And yeah, it's a huge alienating effect. I'm hoping it doesn't depoliticize people, but sends them in the right direction.
Yeah, I have a feeling this is not going to depoliticize people in the way that maybe some element of people coming out of the '60s were depoliticized.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not as broad based as what was going on with that generation. There was a lot more. There was a lot of different factors, I think, involved in that aren't here in the same way. And frankly, I think ultimately, the odd thing is that there is to the extent that there's a silent majority, they are probably in agreement with those protesters. Oddly enough, they may not be as motivated, and they may not, it may not be as high on their agenda. But if they were forced to decide, I think it's pretty close. Certainly, the majority of American public now is just sort of like, this is too much. What's going on. With that said, let's play. I want to play this clip of AOC. Mehdi Hassan asked this question. I thought this was, this is not terribly different than I think that we have been talking about this, because it's sickening to watch what's happening in terms of our support for this, and to watch footage. There was a clip from CNN that I don't know if we could even get through, frankly, but which was that Christian Amanpour played, of a report of the latest attack on a refugee camp in Gaza, which is essentially a refugee camp within the context of a broader refugee camp almost at this point, where half a dozen kids playing foosball were struck by a drone strike. I mean, it's just horrible, and good for CNN for actually introducing these images. But it's very difficult to justify easily how you can go and vote for Joe Biden, knowing that he is so married to this policy of supporting whatever Israel does. Here is Mehdi Hassan asking AOC essentially that question at Zeteo. That's Mehdi Hassan's new media company, one of their launch events.
What do you say to a young progressive or an Arab American who says to you, I just can't vote for Biden again after what he's enabled in Gaza? What do you say to them?
I mean, I think everyone comes to this prospect and this conversation with a different history, different background, what they bring. You know, for an individual Palestinian American that has had their family killed, there is nothing, I mean, I am not here to lecture anyone. I also think that this election is more, in my personal view, I believe this election is about more than the president. And also, it's not just one election that's happening. We're having hundreds of elections.
Yes.
The balance of Congress, the balance of the House, the balance of the Senate, and the presidency. And I have a vested interest in protecting democracy, not just here domestically, but globally. And it isn't, I truly do not believe this as a lesser of two evils type of situation. I think about what conditions do I want to be organizing under in the next 4 years.
Yeah.
We can look at both of these individuals oppositionally as well, depending on what issue you have. But I would rather, even in places of stark disagreement, I would rather be organizing under the conditions of Biden as an opponent on an issue than Trump, who is not, he seeks to dismantle American democracy. And I am taking that personally very seriously, because we will not be able to organize for any movement towards anything if we are facing the jailing of dissidents. I mean, this is the kind of authoritarianism that he threatens. And we have to take it seriously.
I mean, I don't know if I am as motivated by the idea that dissidents are going to be arrested, although I think that's a distinct possibility under a Trump administration. But it's more the sort of like less sexy stuff of the complete sort of dismantling of the administrative state and abortion rights and judiciary. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of other things that, you know, they're not mutually exclusive. But what do you think of the construction of that answer?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'd never endorse a candidate and would never like try to argue with someone as to who they should vote for. Having said that, you have to kind of think about, you know, what sort of future do you want? And like, as bleak and terrible as things are right now, you are seeing an energized protest movement all over America that is, you know, like they're trying to suppress. University administrators are doing like terrible things, but it is there and it's vibrant. And I go back to, you know, the Black Lives, the George Floyd uprising in 2020. And it's, you know, whether Trump will, you know, set up camps for dissidents or not, we actually know what he did. Which is like he cheered on cops, and especially like, you know, there was this murder of an activist in Portland that I often think about, which, you know, like Trump himself referenced, you know, which seems like a straight out case of judicial murder. And I think that if Trump is reelected, that's what we're going to see. We're going to see the protesters are going to face, you know, not just like people who call in the cops to you know, jail people, but like, you know, like a real unleashing of police that feel resentful for all their constraints, and like, you know, like just letting loose on things, along with what you mentioned with the administrative state. And that's going to be used all along the lines for any protest movements, including, you know, as Emma mentioned with abortion, like you're going to, you know, like the amount of state repressive power that can be brought to enforce these anti-abortion laws in the red states, and moving beyond the red states, because it's not going to stop there. I think that's a really serious consideration. You know, having said that, like, you know, like as I said, I don't endorse anyone, but yeah, I think if you're involved with any sort of left progressive politics, you have to think about the conditions of organizing. So I agree with what she said. I think that is a very smart point.
Yeah, I thought that was well constructed. And let's talk a little bit, since we're going back on the week and we got just a little more time left. I guess it was a week ago now. When the Arizona Supreme Court came down and said that this law that was originally from 1864, which outlawed abortion, and at the time, both had criminal penalties, not just for the doctors, but also the would-be mothers, and in 2021, that law was amended to get rid of the criminal punishments for the mothers. I mean, so I without having, read the briefs and stuff like that, I think like the Arizona case seems to make sense. I mean, they clearly, the Arizona legislature clearly was aware this was on the books. They clearly had the opportunity to repeal the whole law. They clearly chose to just refine it, essentially. And so here they've caught the car and they're running away from it. It really is fascinating to watch Kerry Lake, Donald Trump, I don't know, Charlie Kirk, the other pillars of intellectual thought on the Republican side, all basically say, hey, this is a timing problem.
That's right. No, they are trying to. No, I mean, there's been a lot of good reporting on all the Republicans who used to be like, basically like I want to ban all abortions, and now they're like, abortion, that's not our priority. But having said, I mean, I think the real political problem they're going to face is that they needed those anti-abortion votes, like that minority of Americans who. For whom this is like a passionate issue. They're always a small number of people, but they came out to elections, and they came out to like elections, in a country where like, during midterms, nobody votes, right? And that is the base of the Republican Party. They have a lot of power. And I don't think that those people who fought for like 50 years to get rid of Roe v. Wade are suddenly going to say, oh, by getting rid of Roe v. Wade, we just wanted to have the states enact laws to protect reproductive freedom. That's not what they wanted. That's not what they're going to settle for. So I actually think like this is like a huge problem for the Republicans. They can either alienate the majority of the country that is like not just solidly pro-choice, but becoming more and more pro-choice. Like, I think abortions for all could be a winning slogan, like by 2028. Or alienate the hardcore minority that is the base of their party.
Here are two clips that I think illustrate that. This is the first one. This is Republicans in the Arizona legislature, right? This is after we've heard every Republican that we could hear from that we don't agree with the Supreme Court ruling in Arizona.
The same Republicans that were speaking in tongues, praying in the Arizona legislature before this decision was handed down for this very, very godly action.
And here are those same Republicans who control the Arizona legislature cheering, clapping, and celebrating with anti-abortion activists in the gallery after blocking Democrats' attempts to repeal that 1864 ban.
He just like quote tweets a bunch of stuff and just goes like immigrants, Iran.
Another one, the representative.
What's that doing?
So they're looking up at the gallery there.
Yeah, they're all applauding each other. We did it. We did it for you guys. We know who we're working for. They weren't looking at the Lord, incidentally, I should just say. They were actually looking at the...
Well, the Lord is within them.
The Lord's within them. And then I want you to compare that to this. This is Jake Tapper talking to Speaker Johnson, who apparently forgot that he was for a total federal abortion ban, I don't know, literally months ago.
Let me just ask one quick question about policy. If Donald Trump does win, and if the Republicans keep the majority, will you bring the national abortion ban up for a vote?
I don't even know what you're talking about, national abortion ban. No. Listen, President Trump has said this very well. Look, I'm pro-life personally, but I have 434 colleagues. You have to build a political consensus after cultural consensus. Breitbart famously observed that politics is downstream from culture, and there is no consensus at the moment on what to do at the federal level. So that's not on the legislative agenda. That's not something that's being planned. I think President Trump's spoken very clearly about that. Our individual views are individual views, but we have a lot of to work, to build a cultural life, to go out as a party because we believe in that, to speak to that issue and to support families and young mothers who are in unplanned pregnancy situations and to support those who are in need. That's a role that, by the way, is cross-cultural. I mean, we need to do that through the churches, through our communities, at the state level, the local level. All of us have a role to play, and I think that's the important thing that we'll focus on in the days ahead.
You said you didn't know what I meant by a national abortion ban. I meant the Life Begins at Conception Act, which you are a co-sponsor of. But let's move on because I just have this last question. I know.
I mean, I personally, I would have liked Jake Tapper to make a little bit more of that. But I also find it disturbing that Mike Johnson is dropping Andrew Breitbart's name in the same way that you might like Mill or Rousseau in an argument.
De Tocqueville.
I believe the original quote was cocaine is downstream from heart problems. But it got translated as
cocaine would be upstream from heart problems. But go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. But that is the more accurate translation of what Saint Breitbart said. In any case, I don't know. I mean, the thing is, I don't know. I mean, this is the one thing that gives me hope for the Democrats because it is so bad for Republicans, and it's bad on a number of fronts. Which is that if this is their new position, they're going to both alienate their hardcore supporters. But like, who's going to believe that? Like Mike Johnson, doesn't care about abortion. I mean, like Trump, maybe in 2016 he got away with it because obviously this is a guy who's paid for many abortions and people thought, okay, he's going to be good. But like Trump in 2024, after he created the Supreme Court that overturned Roe v. Wade, so you're not going to be able to win over all the moderates that are mad at you, and you're going to make the people that support you mad. I think it's a real crunch for them.
Yeah, I agree with that. And people forget Trump called for, I think it was with Chris Matthews, called for you're probably going to have to put the mother in jail too.
There has to be some punishment.
Yeah, exactly.
They're also, I mean, this is not looking good for them just based on, we didn't really get to it on this Tuesday, but this Wall Street Journal poll on suburban women in these 7 swing states showed abortion as their number one motivating topic or basically issue set, much more so than the next closest one, which it more than doubled. Abortion was 39% as the most important issue for suburban women in swing states. Immigration was second at 16%, and that was the closest one. And I like that poll because it measures motivation as well as just like general sentiment, which is how you need to look at some of these things. So they're concerned about it. And to your guys' point on this, women now know they're lying. Like, we now know that they are lying about their intentions. We know it. They said that it was a states' rights issue. Now these federal ones are being floated, whether it be Lindsey Graham's bill or whether it be what Mike Johnson supports. So, like, I don't know what they can do to put the toothpaste back in the tube here, because now I think generally women in this country and people that can get pregnant have an understanding that they're dishonest fundamentally on their intentions on this issue.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it just, I don't think there's any possible way they can go back. I don't think this is going to work. And I think, if the Democrats had someone other than Joe Biden, they might be able to speak more forthrightly and really use this as a wedge issue. But, here's hoping maybe Kamala Harris and Gretchen Mayer, and, like the other Gretchen Whitmer and others, like really bring this to the focus, because that's basically what you need. You just need the Democrats to keep hammering away at this. This is the this is the Achilles heel. This is how you bring them down.
All right. Lastly, let's just touch on this briefly. Over under Mike Johnson, speaker. What do you think his chances of surviving are? Now, this is really, I should just say, a side story to like whether the supplemental passes and also what's happening with FISA. I mean, these are two big questions that we'll have a better sense of by the time we get to Monday. But Democrats are going to protect Johnson, but how long are they going to protect him for?
I don't know. I mean, I think that in some ways they're getting some of what they wanted, so it is in their interest. But I think like closer to the election, like letting the chaos monkeys loose and letting the public see them. I mean, to me, that would be the smart play because it's only so
keep
much.
Johnson around until like August, September when they come back from recess and just be like, now you're on your own.
That's right. Yeah. I think that. I mean, to me, who knows what their strategizing is, but I do think like an election where it's more than just about Trump and Biden, and where you see the real, demonic, nihilistic chaos monkeys let loose. That makes the odds a little bit better.
Well, Jeet Heer, always a pleasure to talk to you, national affairs correspondent from The Nation magazine. We're going to link to your most recent piece, and hopefully the answer to the question, will Benjamin Netanyahu drag America into a big Middle Eastern war, is the answer is no, but we'll see.
Yeah, we will see.
We will see. Jeet, always a pleasure. Thanks so much.
Yeah, no, great to be on.
Thanks, Jeet.
All right, folks. Scooby-Doo and Call Me Too on the IM says, can we get a shofar for Iowa Ryan's birthday? He's the most humble organizer I've ever met and deserves recognition. Sure, we will do that. I guess we're going to go into the fun half a little bit early today. We'll take some phone calls. Should I plug this podcast? Yeah, I'll plug this podcast. There's a podcast out there called Pretty Sure I Can Fly, which is on like the Smartless label,
cool.
which is that podcast with Bateman and Will Arnett and what's the other guy's name? I can't remember.
Sean Hayes.
Sean Hayes, and it is about like people who like are like have done like crazy things.
Mm-hmm.
Like the first guy to ever do a double flip on a motorcycle, and first woman to go walk to the Arctic. I know they're interviewing today like a guy who flies with one of those like squirrel suits.
Oh my God, that always, whenever I see that,
it's insane.
It makes me want to vomit.
All these people. And I've listened to a bunch of the episodes. They've only released one or two, but I have a romantic relationship with one of the hosts.
Whoa.
On that show. So I just wanted to plug it because it's good if it does well, and I'm rooting it on. So
right. And
you can go check it out and decide which one of the people.
I'm fascinated by that kind of like adrenaline junkie stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like I couldn't even imagine.
It's pretty nuts.
Yes.
Some of these stories are pretty nuts, and the people have interesting stories. They all seem to be either like have had incredibly supportive parents or incredibly abusive parents.
No in between.
No in between.
Have you ever gone skydiving?
No.
Me neither.
I've watched it on TV.
Have you ever done like anything like a bungee jumping situation? No. I would never do this stuff, so I'm asking.
Zip line?
I've done a zip line.
I've done a zip
I've done
line.
zip lines, and it was terrifying for me. But zip lines I can do. Bungee jumping, no.
A zip line accident would just be so undignified. I feel like I can't take the risk of that.
I because of I watched the video the other night of like one of the guys in these squirrel suits, and he was jumping with his buddy, and the buddy, like they're all like semi-suicidal.
Yeah, I feel like kind of have to.
No, like literally.
Right.
And it was horrible. Horrible.
Well, I was thinking about that in the context of like, because there's that movie Civil War that came out that's getting very mixed reactions, I think, but it's also about war correspondence and just like sometimes how people get addicted to the thrill of being in a dangerous situation. I wonder like what the crossover is for people that do stunts like that. It's fascinating. Anyway.
Well, anyways, the point is go and subscribe to Pretty Sure I Can Fly. So go check it out. I think you'll find it interesting. One of the co-hosts, Johnny Knoxville, from
your romantic partner.
I'm not going to say who.
It's a lucky lady.
I'm not going to say who I'm involved with, who's hosting that show. I'm just saying one of them is Johnny Knoxville. All right. Emma, what's happening on ESVN? Oh, also justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee and hot chocolate. I use the coupon code majority, get 10% off.
On ESPN on Monday, we talked a bit about the NBA play-in, previewed it, and the NHL playoff race, which has now been locked up. Also, the Coyotes moving to Utah, which is now official. More billionaire ridiculousness that led to that. And we talked about Aaron Rodgers' insane podcast appearance. But we will be back on Tuesday. Bradley has a Passover celebration on Monday, but on Tuesday, we'll be back to talk about the matchups, the actual news of it, because both NHL and NBA playoffs this year are really exciting. Lots of great storylines too. So youtube.com/ESPN show. And then we'll be breaking down some of the insane reactions to Caitlin Clark's ridiculously low contract and how we can change things there. youtube.com/ESPN show.
Matt.
Patreon.com just left reckoning. Most recent show on Tuesday, we had Asal Rad on to talk about the Iran and Israel stuff. Also in the post game, talked about Elon's broken gas pedals and also the Trump Genocide Joe chant that broke out at his rally and AOC using the term genocide on Stephen Colbert. So check that out. Patreon.com just left reckoning.
See you in the fun half. 3 months from now, 6 months from now, 9 months from now. And I don't think it's going to be the same as it looks like in 6 months from now. And I don't know if it's necessarily going to be better 6 months from now than it is 3 months from now. But I think around 18 months out, we're going to look back and go like, wow. What? What is that going on? It's nuts. Wait a second. Hold on for a second.
The Majority Report.
Emma, welcome to the program.
Hey.
Matt.
What is up, everyone?
Nomi Key.
You did it. Let's go, Brandon.
Let's go, Brandon.
Bradley, you want to say hello?
Sorry to disappoint everyone. I'm just a random guy.
It's all the boys today.
Fundamentally false.
No, I'm sorry. Women's...
Stop talking for a second and let me finish.
Where is this coming from, dude?
But dude, you want to smoke this 7A?
Yes.
Hi, me? Is it?
Yes.
Is this me?
Is it me?
It is you.
Is this me? Hello, is this me?
I think it is you. Who is you? No sound. Every single freaking day. What's on your mind?
Sports. We can discuss free markets and we can discuss capital.